Okay. Good morning, everyone. Hello, my name is Jeff Foster. I work for the Center for Outcomes Effectiveness Research and for the CCTS for Dr. Ken Sag. John and Eve are on vacation this week, so I'm going to do my best to fill in. Our speaker today is Kay Hogan-Smith. She is the Senior Research Reference Librarian here at UAB, the Lister Hill Library. Her and her team, Carolyn Holmes and Dorothy, are folks, if you stay in academic medicine, that you'll either hear or elsewhere that there'll be a librarian that you're going to get to really know very well as you do research for grant applications, backgrounds on questions. If you have an interest in academic medicine, academic research, the reference librarians at institutions like ours are a wonderful resource that I encourage you all to take advantage of. And Kay has been kind enough to join us today and will give us a little bit of background on that and how you can engage and things to do as far as starting your research. So, thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. So, who else's power went out last night? Yeah. So I did that thing when I got home from work yesterday, and I went around. The power was out, and I went out and turned all the switches, on the light switches around the house. And of course, I went to bed, and it was still dark. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, the lights came off, and every light in the house was off. So yeah, I had a nice night last night. Anyway, I'm going to talk to you today about using the library resources and services to support your work, and especially searching the literature. Now, by necessity, a lot of what I'm going to go over is, UAB centric. So, but as Jeff mentioned, wherever you are, wherever you end up, generally the same services and approaches to doing this kind of work are going to apply. Okay, so just be aware of that. These are my objectives for this session this morning. So hopefully you'll be able to, after this session, you'll be able to, find whatever books and resources you need for your background information, find research articles for the kind of foreground research that you need to find out what are the most recent advances in your field. Okay, and to do that, I'll hopefully teach you some ways to do effective searches of the biomedical literature. Okay, and incorporate maybe a few advanced searching techniques into your search strategies. And then we'll talk about, also about, getting to full text. That's important, whether you're on or off campus. And we'll talk a little bit about ways to appraise the evidence, okay, of the resources that you find, okay, and know where to go for help, because that's important. So we'll kind of start actually at the end there, where to go for help. We have a series of, hundreds of library guides that are on all different kinds of subjects, on all different kind of resources that will take you through whether you're doing an M-based search or a PubMed search or using EndNote or any of these other resources. It'll take you through step by step and help you use those resources wisely and get to more help there. So be sure to look up those. This is kind of the central landing place for all our library guides. Again, if you're at a different institution, lots of libraries use these guides now, so they'll be available wherever you are. And we also have Ask a Librarian service. You can get to us through chat. You can, this is our chat window that pops open if you click on the little Ask a Librarian tab. And we also have, you can email us questions, you can call us, of course, you can schedule individual consultations. So if you are working on a particular project, we're glad to sit down with you one-on-one and go through your topic and come up with good resources to check and strategies to use for your particular area of concern. As far as full text, most of the resources we make available now are, of course, online. So, so the good news is it's pretty easy to get to full text. We've been in kind of a transition period over the last year or so. We're moving to a new platform for our catalog and our online resources and our link resolvers. We're still currently using the UAB article linker as our link resolver to get to full text, especially for the Lister Hill Library stuff where I work. The new link resolver that's on our new platform doesn't work quite as well with our resources as we think it should. So we're working out the kinks on that. We're still using the article linker. But what it is, so if you do a PubMed search, you put in your search and you get some articles. You pull up the citations in PubMed, and if you first of all, you want to go through the library website to get to PubMed, even though it's a free resource. You want to start with the library website, and so you do your research, you link to PubMed, you do your search, you pull up some references, and if you look at the abstract view of the citations, you'll see these little buttons, either underneath the abstracts or over to the side, to link to the full text. And one of those is usually the publisher button, and the other is the UAB article linker. And so you click on that article linker and you get a little intermediate page that says, hopefully it says, great, we've got that article. So you click on the links to click on the article link to pull up full text. And if you're off campus, if you've gone through the library website, which will get you through our proxy server to authenticate, it will prompt you for your Blazor ID and password. And that's where you put that in, and once you do that and log in, lo and behold, your full text appears. Okay? So just be sure to always go through the library website and get in the habit of going through and starting with the library site to get to these resources, okay? Now, sometimes we won't have what you need. We can't afford to get everything, unfortunately. So then in this case, you'll get this thing that says, sorry, we don't have full text available. But you do have other options, so even if we don't have immediate access to it. So the one thing we always do is we have this little thing that says option 1, says try Google Scholar. So you have this link, and you click on that link, and it'll populate the Google Scholar search to find that particular article, and hopefully maybe they've made it available for full text. If not, we have free interlibrary loan service for you. So what you can do is just click on the little option 2 link request button below that, and that will automatically populate the interlibrary loan form for you. You'll have to log in again with your Blazor ID and password, but it'll populate the form. It'll send it automatically, and usually it's really fast. Now we can get it under 24 hours actually. And it's free. It's free to use. So it's still almost like having immediate access to it. Other routes to full text include, again, Google Scholar. One of those, I have the link on the slide to the guide for using Google Scholar to actually, if you go to that guide, it'll tell you how to set it up to link to full text that we subscribe to on your behalf. So you can use that to get to full text. The EndNote has a feature that you can set it up to find full text and add PDFs to your libraries. And then Browsing is an app that's available to download PDFs from journals that you're mostly interested in. Okay. So any questions about full text? Okay. Well, let's, we kind of started at the end there, so now we're going to go back up. All right, so when you're getting started in your research, again, you want to start with the library website. And this is the Lister Hill site. Actually, we have a joint site for all the libraries now. For a long time, UAB was set up so that everything was kind of balkanized into the medical side and the rest of the campus. Well, it's more of kind of a cross-institutional kind of collaboration now. So the libraries have joined administratively and stuff, and so we have a joint site, and our catalogs are joined together, so you don't have to search each library catalog separately. You can do it separately together. But we also have our own websites as well, so you can go to that, and if you go to our website, you can see that we've, in fact, let me. Sorry. Here we are. So if we're looking at the library website here, this is Lister Hill site, and you can see that we pulled out the major heavy hitter databases that most people start with on their literature reviews. PubMed, CINAHL, which is a nursing and allied health database, Scopus, Google Scholar, and Embase. And I'm not going to have time to go through all of those. I'm probably just going to go through PubMed today for you, but just be aware of that. If you keep scrolling down, you'll see the other services that we offer. You can reserve a study room. Okay, you can do this for group study or individual study. There's the Interlibrary Loan. There's also, we have another page of that links to all our databases that we make available, hundreds of databases and resources. And so there's a lot more than just PubMed and Embase and those heavy hitters. And you can use the subject guide up here, the pull-down menu here, to go through the different subjects that you may be particularly interested in. Okay. So we're interested in medicine. So there are all like 69 databases that may be relevant to you in medicine. And it has our Jill Deaver, who's the liaison to the School of Medicine, her contact information over here, and some guides that she's made available. So just be aware of that. You can go to this databases page and focus what kind of databases you're looking for, and look beyond PubMed and Embase and stuff. You can also look for particular types of resources by looking at all database types. If you're looking for, say, just ebooks or something like that, you can look under books. For test instruments, you can use that one. Dissertations, test prep, that kind of thing. Okay? So that's our databases page. And then there are some other resources down here, some FAQs. Here's the link to the research guides that I was telling you about. Okay? So there are a number of those. And then there's our catalog at the very top. So you can kind of use it as kind of a almost a Google search, in this basic search form. However, that can be kind of overwhelming in the same way that Google can be. Okay, so what I usually do when I'm looking for a book or something in particular, I'll look in. I'll use the advanced feature, and it pops that up, this search box up. And I go into the search scope, and instead of searching everything, I try to target a little bit. So if I'm looking for, say I'm looking just for an ebook, okay? I can click on that. I can go into that in the first field and choose the, say I'm looking for a title. Say I'm looking for, let's see, I'm going to look for Nelson Pediatrics. I want an ebook that's Nelson Pediatrics. So I can do a search, and there it is. Nelson Textbook of Pediatrics. Now at this point you can click on the online access and go directly to it, or sometimes it's better to start with the link in the title to make sure there aren't any kind of weird stuff that you might need to be aware of. Sometimes we have only one person can use it at a time or something like that, and if you just try to click on the online access immediately, you may not, and if you can't get to it, you may figure out, well, what's going on here, and maybe somebody else is using it at the same time or something. But if you click on the view full text, it'll pull it up in whatever vendor platform we have it. This one is available through Clinical Key, and here it is. Okay. Any questions about the catalog? Y'all are quiet. Okay, well, let's go back. All right, so we just talked about our databases page. Okay, but most people start with a database like PubMed or Embase or something to start their search for articles on a topic. Okay, you use the catalog to look for books and other resources, but you want to use PubMed or another database to try to find articles on a topic. And a lot of people actually start with Google Scholar, and there's let's talk a little bit about that, because especially I've come across this a lot. Google Scholar is great. I use it a lot myself, and Google is great. But I tend to use Google or Google Scholar when I'm looking for something in particular. If I'm looking for a particular article or a particular manuscript, something like that. If I'm looking for a general topic, it's going to be overwhelming pretty quickly. So again, if I no. I always have trouble doing this, sorry. So again, if I go to go back to my library page. Just to give you an example, if I'm in Google Scholar and say, for the purposes of this class, my example is, and this is based on a real question I had, was somebody's looking for the evidence for induced sputum versus gastric aspirate and the diagnosis of pediatric tuberculosis. So if I go to Google Scholar and I just put in my keywords, okay, induced sputum, gastric aspirate, pediatric tuberculosis. All right, I'm getting over 12,000 results. All right, and yes, a lot of them will be really relevant, and it'll be pretty handy to use this. And I can go into my advanced features and target it a little bit more if I wanted to, but I'm still going to get a whole bunch of stuff, okay, that I'm going to have to dig through. Okay, let's see, actually just copy this. By comparison, if I go into PubMed and I use the basic search box and I just put in those exact same keywords and do a search, and thinking about it, I get 28. And if I go into my search details, which is the little box over in the right-hand sideboard, and I click on See More, it'll show you how it translates my search, my keywords that I put in. So it's you can see down at the bottom in the translations, it's taken my keywords and kind of divided it out into the different concepts. So it's looking at gastric. It found the mesh headings, which we're going to talk about, and ordered that with the keywords. Also induced sputum, pediatrics, and tuberculosis to come up with these 28 different results. I can also take that same search and use a nice little tool in PubMed called Clinical Queries, which is really useful to find evidence-based literature. That's under the central column here in PubMed Tools on the home page of PubMed. If I click on Clinical Queries here, it pops up this other little search box. I can put in my same keywords, search, and I get a systematic review, which is in Spanish, and also about 12 clinical trials. Okay, so that's another way to kind of target your results. I've been a librarian for a long time. When I first started, the real challenge was to try to find something on a particular topic for a library user. Now I'm more called upon to help people manage the flow of information because there's just so much out there. Okay, it's easy to get overwhelmed, and then when there's too much, you're not really taking in anything. Okay, so that's a large part of my job now, and that's what I'm hoping to be able to teach you how to do, is how to target your searches so that you can get better results. Okay. So, all right, so let's talk about PubMed a little bit more now. We talked about Google Scholar. PubMed is it's considered a gold standard biomedical database. It contains millions of citations, including those that are in what's called the Medline database, which has been around for many years. And those citations in Medline have been fully indexed using what we call a controlled vocabulary of subject headings that are mesh headings. And the purpose of mesh headings and any kind of controlled vocabulary, and all the databases pretty much have them, it's just an agreed upon way that the indexers come up with to say, okay, this subject is going to be described by this term, regardless of how many different keywords the authors themselves may use to describe it in their articles. They read through the articles and say, no, it fits under this topic heading, and that's what we're going to put it under. So it's an efficient way to do your searching if you use mesh searches. Okay. There's a drawback though, because PubMed also has in-process citations, and these are kind of automatically added by the publishers to PubMed. And it takes a while for the indexers to go behind and add those, index those into the Medline database. Okay, so if you just use the mesh headings, you're gonna miss out on these really new citations that haven't been fully indexed yet. Okay, so the best thing is to do both use both mesh and keyword searching together. Anyway, just keep that in mind. Anyway, PubMed is available free for everybody. Again, you can link to that full text, especially if you go through the library's websites. Okay. This is an example of a full PubMed record, and you'll see, I don't know if you can see at the bottom, we've kind of circled where the mesh terms, you can pull those up, and if you click on that pull-down menu, you fill in all the different mesh terms that are assigned to this particular article. All right, and there are quite a few. So what you should do when you're starting with PubMed, or really any database, you start with an answerable question, and we're going to talk about this before we get into the demo. You start with a good question, okay? And when you do your search, you want to look at that search details box in PubMed that I showed you, and we'll do that in the demo. You want to consider the different mesh headings that you might be able to use for this, and you can combine searches on the Advanced Search Builder page. We'll be using that in the demo as well. Link to the full text using UAB article linker. You can use wildcard symbols for truncating root words, using an asterisk, quotation marks around phrases to force it to look for a phrase. PubMed isn't the be-all and end-all either. Especially if you're doing something like a systematic review, where you're doing a comprehensive search of the literature, you don't want to stick with just one database. You have to look at all the different databases that are relevant to your topic. Okay, so you may have to search several, and of course, ask a librarian if you need help. Okay. All right, so let's talk about question formation real quick. A lot of people use this PICO format to set up what's called an answerable question, okay? And PICO, the P stands for the population or the problem. The I is the intervention or exposure of interest. And C is comparison, any comparison treatments or interventions, or no intervention, whatever. And the O is outcomes. So I have some examples on the slide of some not really poorly designed questions, but they could be better, and ways to make them better. Okay, so if if we have a question of are condoms effective in preventing HIV, one way we might make that a little bit more targeted is to think about the population that we're primarily interested in. So we could say, okay, in men who have sex with men, does condom use reduce the risk of HIV transmission? So in this one, we've got the population, the men who have sex with men. The intervention is condom use. Comparison would presumably be not using condoms. And the outcomes would be HIV transmission, right? Another example is in the more poorly designed question is which interventions reduce health inequalities among people with HIV? Now, I think if you think about that, that can be kind of a broad nature question. So again, you want to target it. So perhaps we might think, okay, let's think about maybe in women with HIV, that particular population, do peer-based interventions, a particular intervention, reduce health inequalities, the outcome. Okay? That make sense? All right. Let's do a demo then. I'm just going to escape here. Okay. So for my demo for this, instead of doing actually there are ways I could have made this by the way, this induced sputum pediatric tuberculosis diagnosis question a little bit better. But that was just kind of a quickie thing. So let's say another question I got recently was someone wanted to know what was the evidence for hypotonic versus isotonic solutions, maintenance fluids for hospitalized kids, okay? And so for that one, again, you could start with the basic search box at the top and just put in your keywords, hypotonic, oops, except I gotta give myself a cursor here. Hypotonic, isotonic, just put that right here. I'm going to go ahead and put pediatrics, even though it's not exactly the right thing, and just put those keywords in and search it. And I have 85. Again, I'm going to check my search details just to see what it did with my search here. And if I look at the translation, it really didn't do much. Unfortunately, in this case, it looked at pediatrics. Okay, well, that's the least it could do. It didn't do much with hypotonic or isotonic. It didn't map to the correct subject headings that I want. So I'm going to have to go and find the mesh term that I want. All right. So what I want to do is go back to the home page, and I click on the little logo at the top to get back. I go under the More Resources over the far right and click on the Mesh Database. And let's try Hypotonic Solutions. There it is. And this is the record in the Mesh Database. It's not in PubMed. It's in the Mesh Database. For this subject heading. So it gives you a little definition, all right? You can apply the subheadings specifically for this. I could go ahead and click on therapy if I wanted to focus on that. I'm just going to leave it kind of loose right now. Underneath the subheadings, I can use the restrict to mesh major focus. I can make this the main point of the articles I pull up. I don't have to. It will then give you the hierarchy of subject headings, and if there were more specific headings underneath hypotonic solutions that I did not want to include, I would have to check this box as do not include mesh terms found below this term in the mesh hierarchy. Otherwise, it automatically includes it. So to quickly search this, I go back up, and you'll notice there's a little PubMed search builder over on the right-hand side. So underneath that little box, I click on Add to Search Builder. All right. And let's let's go ahead and search the other part too. Okay, so I've got that in my PubMed search builder. I'm going to go ahead and look at my isotonic solution as well. My isotonic solutions. You notice hypotonic solutions is still in my PubMed search builder. It has the same setup here. There's nothing more specific under isotonic solutions that I have to worry about. And I'm going to go ahead and click on this Add to Search Builder as well. So it'll just kind of add everything together, okay? If I wanted to OR those together instead of ANDing them, remember using the Boolean operators to combine your concepts, right? I can change that by clicking on this little pull-down menu beside the Add to Search Builder button and change that. But I actually want to look at articles that discuss both of these concepts, okay? So I'm going to keep them both together. And then I'm going to click on the Search PubMed button underneath it. Okay, and I have 376. I still haven't added my concept for pediatrics or children, right? So I really want this focused on children. You can use the filters over on the left-hand side to include ages and select your ages that you're interested in if you want to. There are actually some, well, since I'm only doing a mesh search at this point, it doesn't really matter because I'm only looking in those Medline references. However, if you're doing, you know, the search with both Medline and the in-process citations, you don't want to use those age filters because again, it knocks out those in-process citations. So there's actually another way, another advanced technique I want to show you. What you can do if you go back to our library page, let's go to PubMed. You'll see this link to the PubMed guide right underneath the PubMed box. I click on that. There are these preformed search strategies called hedges that are produced for all these different databases specific to that database that you can use. And these hedges tab in the far right corner of this library guide, if you click on that, there are a number of hedges that we've made available to you depending on what it is you're looking for, the type of study, if you're just looking for human subjects, randomized controlled trials, whatever. And if you keep scrolling down, you'll find one for age groups, one of which is a child filter that's used in the Cochrane Library. So what I could do is just kind of highlight all of that, Control-C to copy it, come back to PubMed, take this out, paste it into my box and search it, instead of using the child filter. That makes sense? Maybe. And it did a wildcard search in there for child, which is only going to search the first 600 variations. So just one drawback. So now I can combine that with my first search if I wanted to. So if I remember, we talked about the advanced search builder, using that advanced search builder. There's a link up to the advanced search builder up at the top, right under the search box. So if you click on that advanced hyperlink, this is the PubMed Advanced Search Builder, and if you kind of scroll down, you'll see all the searches that I've already done are still there. Okay, they didn't go anywhere. And so what I can do to add these, if I go into that history part, there's a column that says Add to Builder, and I can go down to the one where I searched my hypotonic solutions and isotonic solutions, and I can just click on that Add, and it just kind of pops it up in the builder. You can't really see it right now. And then I can add the one that has the hedge for a child. Click on that. I look back at my search builder in there. They're in there. And I can search it. Okay, and I have 74. So it's a really good set, you know. I can start with that. I can also pop that into the clinical queries filter, you know, to look at the evidence-based resources, that kind of thing. All right. Does that, did y'all follow that okay?
Sorry, I think I missed that part. The builder, where did he get that from?
I'm sorry.
The builder part?
So the advanced,
Oh,
if you click on advanced, so if I go back there, I click on advanced, where is it? It's still there. Okay. You can also use, speaking of the clinical queries filter, you can see on the history there are these search numbers, search strings numbers. So this is number 10, the search I just did that got 74. What I can do instead of plugging in the whole search into that clinical queries, I can go back to PubMed Home, go to the PubMed tools, go to clinical queries in that column, type in number 10, which is my search string, and search it. And this time I've got, I've got 11 systematic reviews that I could get to and 67 controlled trials. Okay. So if I wanted to see just my systematic reviews, I could say see all 11 and just kind of plug those in. So it's really handy. You can, to make use of these features. And if you, I don't expect you to remember all this. So if you forget it, just let us know. We'll remind you how to do it. So one thing, do most of you have my NCBI accounts? Okay.
Does anyone have a My NCBI account? Dr. Jackson, Dr. Sack, I know.
If you don't, it's a really good thing for you to go ahead and set up, okay? You'll notice when I did my searches, it's kind of automatically set up to where I see the abstracts, the abstract view. It'll actually highlight, it's supposed to highlight the terms that I looked for. You can set up, how you want to, your preferences for your settings and stuff. If you haven't set that up, by the way, you can change that format by clicking on the format pull-down menu. But I have it set up automatically. Also, in my NCBI, you can go ahead and if I wanted to save the search, I could go under Create Alert, and it would say, you could save the search to run again. You could say, do it automatically, so it sends you updates every month or whenever you want. I could save my references to a collection, that kind of build a collection as I go, if I'm doing an ongoing search. And also, my NCBI connects you with other features that are available from the National Library of Medicine, like the Science CV, which allows you to create a biosketch for your grant funding applications. So that's compliant with the NIH funding rules. Okay, so it's got a lot of good features and something you really want to set up if you haven't set that up already. Okay. All right.
Okay, y'all can help them set up the My NCBI account.
We sure can.
That's really important, not to understate that. Keeping that up to date, making sure you go ahead and do that now or on. If especially if you're going to stay in the research field, that's now with new rules. As Kay said, for NIH, if our My NCBI accounts are out of date, or we have a publication that isn't pulling correctly, we get notified. They will not let us get the grant in, or the NGA gets delayed. It's a pain, and then there's delays and going back, and it's a real administrative hassle. So do this early on.
Yeah.
Stay on top of it.
So just to show you what it looks like, if I click on My NCBI at the top, you'll see what it looks like. So I have several saved searches that I've done. I have several biosketches that I've done. You can do target your biosketch to whatever funding. You can create different ones for whatever funding you're going for, and you can delegate, others to manage your biosketches or your collection. You can here's my collections of articles that I've worked on, This My Bibliography is also really important for your coming careers and stuff. You use this My Bibliography to keep up with the NIH public access requirements for. So if you get NIH funding, you're required to make your published articles available in PubMed Central, and this kind of helps you manage that compliance. So when you link it to your NIH funding accounts, you can go to Manage My Bibliography, and it will tell you if if any funding has been associated with it, if you're compliant, if you're not compliant, kind of it flags it for you. Okay. So we help people with that kind of stuff as well. Okay. Okay. So any questions about my NCBI or the searches that we did or whatever? As far as doing, combining searches with the mesh terms and the keywords, again, you can use that advanced search builder. If I wanted to go back and kind of plug in some keywords for hypotonic and isotonic to get at those in-process citations, I could do that. What I usually do is what I'm doing is taking the pull-down menu for the all fields. It will default to all fields, but I like to go down and choose just the title or abstract. Again, really targeting my results. So I'm looking at the title or abstract, and I'm looking at hypotonic and doing the same thing in the next field with isotonic. And I can add that to the history, and then OR that with number 8, which was my mesh term. I'm adding those to the builder and changing the Boolean operator to OR, add that to the history, and then I'm going to add in my pediatrics. And my search this time will bring in, it's got quite a few more. I've got 212. And the first ones that I get, the first few that I get, you'll notice there are no mesh terms. Oh, there are some. There should be some that have no mesh terms available with them. Yeah, there are some that are coming up without them. Okay, so these are the in-process citations. They haven't been indexed yet. Okay. Again, there's your article linker to get to full text. That's if it doesn't work for some reason, you can always also try the publisher button as well, just to see if that'll work for you. All right. All right. So we talked about doing the searching, saving your searches, setting up alerts, using that My NCBI account. Again, if you need any help with this, that PubMed guide is really helpful. This is a link to that. Beside the hedges, that can give you some other advanced searching techniques to use. And it also has a link to the My NCBI, setting up My NCBI. Okay, let's talk a little bit about appraising quality of your references. So this is kind of an image that incorporates both, what was started when we started with this evidence-based practice thing back in the 90s. It was kind of a basic, it was a little more simplistic about, okay, if it's an RCT, a randomized controlled trial, that's higher evidence than case control study or expert experience or something like that, and that's good as far as it goes. However, if it's a poorly if the randomized controlled trial is poorly designed, it's not well designed, if the systematic review is not well designed or whatever, or biased or whatever, it's not going to be that good quality evidence, right? So grade is one of the major kind of appraisal checklists that are around. There are a number of checklists you can use, but most of them, just kind of look at the study and look at, if there are any limitations to it. If it's, you start with, okay, great, it's a randomized controlled trial, but, are they, is it really randomized? Is there appropriate blinding? Or there's some other limitations that might affect the quality of this particular trial. All right, and then are there other biases that may come into play? Is there kind of selection bias in terms of whatever, like this is a systematic review? Is there a publication bias in only searching the published literature rather than the unpublished trials and things that are out there? So so these are the kind of questions you have to ask yourself. And this grade checklist is really good. It's been adopted by the heavy hitters in the field, like Cochrane and World Health Organization, some others. But there are some simple checklists that you can use. If you go to our systematic reviews library guide, it has a section on appraising the evidence and appraising the studies. And there are several checklists you can print off there that kind of ask the same questions about, the type of study and how well it was performed. Okay. So you really want to think about that. And again, you want to, especially if you're doing a systematic review, you want to use something besides PubMed. You want to use Embase, maybe Scopus, Google Scholar. You can use it. You can use Cochrane Library, and also some of the unpublished gray literature, things from clinicaltrials.gov, for instance, or some of the other resources out there that include unpublished trials, because a lot of the stuff a lot of the trials never actually make it to publication, especially if they don't have any positive results. Okay.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I hope everybody understands that. The stuff that's a lot of times in the literature, it's just if you have a positive result. And I don't, not to steal the case thunder, but that's a big deal. You need to make sure you're thinking through when you're designing your study or thinking through your research. There's a lot of times we do projects and we have no effect, and that's important to know, but that doesn't get published. And that's just something to make sure you're thinking about, especially if you're doing a systematic research or you're early on in your grant writing, and you're writing up your project. You don't want to just blindly go in and you're publishing 10 things that actually have a positive effect for what you're interested in. There's probably 50 where there was no effect for whatever reason, and that may be poorly designed trial, variety. Or you just make sure you're considering that as you're building out your idea.
I would second that, because now editorial boards are we're all looking at how you all are doing things. So if you haven't listed how you created the evidence, you haven't listed a systematic way of doing that systematic review, then you're going to be a lot less likely to be published in a higher impact journal. And there's lots of journals out there, but you want to have, it's going to help you with your research, but it also, if you're doing a systematic review, why not publish it? And if you're not going to publish it well if you're not really honing down your methods. And we're specifically asking people to go back and tell us exactly how they did it, using certain guidelines like Cochrane.
Mm-hmm. And here's our guide for systematic reviews. We do have a systematic review service at the Lister Hill Library, so we'll sit down with you and go through your searches and help you create a good good strategies and methods for doing a systematic review. This is the tab for appraisal and analysis that I was telling you about that has some checklists, and it includes the grade checklist. Okay, so there are a number of things that you can use here. Okay, and we're also actually getting ready to order some systematic review software for people to use to help manage the process, because it's a big undertaking. So we're getting ready to order the distiller software. All right. That was really about all I had to go into this morning with you. Do you have any questions? I mean, I know I went through a lot of stuff really fast, but like I said, I don't really expect you to remember all those really fancy techniques that I went in. But again, I just want you to remember to call us and ask us, because we'd love to help you and work with you. Okay.
Also,
Yes,
for meta-analysis, I'm assuming if you're helping with systematic reviews, you're helping with meta-analysis.
Yeah. We're not, I would not say that any of us are really experts in meta-analysis at this point. We can, that's a really specialized technique. The main thing, though, to consider in doing a meta-analysis is making sure that you're not comparing apples and oranges, that the studies that you're using are not too different to be able to combine reasonably. Okay.
And I think it starts just like systematic reviews.
Yeah, it does. It does.
So another thing, quick question: how many of you guys actually use PubMed regularly, or have gone before? Okay, perfect. And you guys are all familiar with EndNote, using EndNote. No issues with EndNote. Everyone in the room is good with EndNote.
I think they have a problem getting EndNote on certain
Okay.
in the hospital work.
So that again, for somebody that does this full time every day, especially on the front end of projects or when we're doing a systematic review, having Kay and her team help us find the literature. But not only that, and this will sound it may sound trivial, but it is absolutely not. They will export us out all the references to an EndNote library in the format that we need, which makes things much, much easier and really helps our efficiency with getting stuff written up. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to go help somebody learn how to download an EndNote reference and then drop it into the paper. So if you don't know how to do that, Kay and her team can walk you through it. It's very simple once you learn how to do it, but it's something that, again, if you do this every day, you really just need to make sure you understand fully how to use it. And then also, how fast and how much time saving it is not have to go in and say this, do this, click this, drag this over, do this, and now my library, oh crap, I forgot to download that 5 references. They'll send you the library built out, and then you can go through and use which ones you want.
Are you guys using the online?
Yeah, no, we've not. I still use the desktop version. I've not used it, and I don't use PaperPile and all the other ones. I've had issues with those.
The EndNote that's online, it's easy to share.
Yeah, it is easier.
I've had some residents who they said they shared it with me and I can't find it, but particularly if you're collaborating across institutions where there might be firewalls and sending stuff, sometimes that's.
No, that's a good point.
I'm trying to transfer everything over. I'm still having.
To be honest, that was one of the reasons, one of the impetus behind getting the systematic review software, because EndNote's great. I mean, it can be problematic when you're trying to share the libraries, and so these tools actually make it easier, regardless of which institution where you are, for people to screen references and select different ones and include them and find full text and things like that. So it makes it easy, and then you can still export to in the library if you want to use that for your final paper. But I've used things. There's a free tool called Rayon that I've used. That's really easy to start with. Start screening with, and this distiller looks like it would be pretty good too. So.
Another thing I want to circle back on and just emphasize to everybody, when you do your MyNCBI, and again, if you're submitting grants, making sure you correctly identify the funding source is a big deal. So, especially for federal funding, it's very important that you do that correctly and that you do it in a timely fashion. Because again, NIH will come back and say, why did you credit this? What happened there? So I really encourage you, if you haven't set up your MyNCBI, go ahead. And then from our perspective, for the CCTS or a center grant, we can go ahead and build alerts, searches, whatever, and they let us know when something's published that you cited the funding source. So we're able to keep track of things. Again, as you get into writing grants, you'll see that having this information quickly and easily at hand really makes your life a lot better. You're not up trying to find something or track down somebody that forgot to cite your funding source for your center grant on the last 4 papers they wrote. Or if they're incorrectly citing a funding source, that's another thing that we can easily quick and go in and fix.
I would just say double check them, because I think I might have talked with you about this, how they were importing some things that I was a co-investigator on that has a PI.
Right.
And I never found the person that I could.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
We
Yeah,
talked about this.
it can be a real headache to get some of these things.
But it's all in one place, and at the time I was doing an NSF biosketch and an NIH biosketch, and that was pretty seamless, but there are a few hiccups in how it's identifying your funding source, so just double check. But the nice thing is it's all in one place. It took me like 5 minutes to correct some of the stuff. And it's nice for, if you're going for job interviews or you're going for promotions, having not done that initially, it's a pain to try to think, do I have all my publications in one place?
Anybody have any questions? Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you.